On to our fourth and final best of the 6 days we've got here, Gormizer.
3, 6, 9.
Let me go ahead and give that one a redo.
Yeah.
Rewind with me.
Reset button on Dave.
I don't know where it would be. It would be right here on me. On to the fourth and final best of 3 of the day we go. And it's another good one here in the middle of the North American SCC. Last one was highly competitive. I expect our final match of the day to be so as well. A little bit of a spoiler. You already got it. My name's Dolson. Gormizer is with me on the desk for our second set of the day. And Gor's our second. Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't think there's your reset button. I've got a tattoo right there that's a reboot button.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's there on you. Yours is like behind your ears.
Somewhere else.
You gotta go.
No, it's my pillow with a blanket over me. That's my reset mode. Our fourth set of the day, my goodness, Score. Our third set of the day was very competitive. It was in the middle of the North American SCC.
It was in the middle of the day as well.
That's right. It was in the middle of the day. Now we get to the end of the day. I promise we're getting there. Let's take a look at what already happened in Group A here so far today. Remember, double elim brackets separated into 2 groups. The Eldritch Hounds started our day with a 2-0 over We Pull Up. And then what you just saw in our third set of the day was the Callan Wardens against the Anansi Weavers. And so tomorrow, these are the matchups we have slated over in Group A. It's Eldritch Hounds and Callan Wardens. That one should be a good one. You're still favoring the Hounds, but the Wardens definitely showed up today. And then Weavers versus We Pull Up. We Pull Up had some moments, Score. And so I don't think our close sets all the way finished over in Group A. And with the one set that we have remaining today, we'll jump back over to Group B. And so to start off the day, it was very similar, the Sages with the 2-0 over our SOC representatives. And now our final matchup, it's the Tanuki versus the Xibalba Storm. What I've been trying to get at is that these middle-of-the-pack SCC matchups tend to be very close.
Yeah, and I think this is another one that is going to be able to step up and match that, right? I think that what we're seeing, and what we've seen out of the Tanuki and out of the Storm, I think admittedly, have stepped up in times of tournaments, specifically the Tanuki, right? MagicFeet has had very, very solid performances when it comes to postseason or anything that's not regular season. So I think there's a lot of stuff that I have expectation-wise for the Tanuki. A lot that can also be said for the Storm, just based on name power, players that are showing up. The thing that's interesting for the Tanuki to me, though, is specifically the fact that they are coming into this, like Snoopy was playing with this squad before he got pulled to play, now mid for the Scarabs. So they needed a hunter, right, coming into this. And it's one of the 3 or 4, I'm going to say 3 North American teams that have had changes that they've had to deal with. And they picked up Shiπigami, so it's somebody that I not only fully trust, but expect to be able to play well. It's also the easiest role. We kind of touched on it earlier. I think it's one of the easier roles to plug and play in comparison to some of the others. Like your support, your mid, your jungler, they're going to be very heavily involved in a lot of things. Solo is a little half and half because they're going to be isolated for a lot of it, but eventually in team fights you're going to really need them. But when it comes down to your hunter, what are they doing every game? They're going to farm in a 1v1 for a while, pick up their items, get to the late game, be your DPS. They're not normally your shot callers, things like that. And so I have some pretty high expectations for what Shiπigami is going to be able to provide for this team.
Agreed.
And know that it's not going to be a detriment, and can only, honestly, I think it's going to be either balancing even or maybe a net gain, depends on what kind of weekend Shiπigami is going to have.
Agreed. Shiπigami, a very, very talented player. Now, I actually think there was a bit of a shift. Remember, Snoopy started off, I think Snoopy played with the Sages for a little while, and so has bounced around to a couple of different teams.
Yeah.
Remember, with this team, it really started off where Snoopy was it. Snoopy was the win condition for a couple of the squads that he played on. This is no fault of Snoopy's, but eventually shifted away from that a little bit, where Snoopy would still have great games, but didn't holistically rely on Snoopy. So that's what I wonder with the Tanuki here, if we now move to a point playstyle-wise where we don't have to fully rely on that ADC role anymore. So we'll see high expectations, though, again, for your third seed North American SCC squad. Now, the team they're going up against, it's your 5th seed SCC team, and it's the Xibalba Storm. And the Xibalba Storm, a team with a lot of fight. You look at the seeding and you assume a bit lower here in the North American SCC. But this is a squad all phase long that gave every other team fits. It's a team that can play through so many of their lanes, Gore. And if you want to pick up right in the dual lane, InMyZen and Oceans, one of the stronger dual lanes we've gotten here.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for this one as well. I think Oceans, has been one of those players you'd want to go back to talking about Oceans emerging onto the scene. Was in a highly, highly coveted player just in general. And I think this year in support has been phenomenal for them. I also think that as you highlighted, InMyZen, another player that's been around for a long time, very, very adept at playing over there in the long lane, the two of them combined. And you've got a lane that admittedly, if you're looking specifically at Shippigami, you're going to struggle with, right? Because you've got two guys that are really, really good at the game that are looking down the barrel at you. So a lot of work, I think, for the Tanuki duo lane to try and match what we're going to see in InMyZen. And we've seen a couple of the highlights, but I think they've got similar-ish god pools. One thing that Storm was doing, specifically Zen was doing, that is pretty wildly different than maybe what we've seen out of others, is there was a lot of vast, just kind of ignoring of the meta. And I'm wondering if we're going to see that. Like the Ho-Yi highlights, I mean, Zen and Ho-Yi go hand in hand in my mind. But I think being able to see right now the Ishtar, right, the Chernonoses, your Cupids, those top three that we're kind of used to, wouldn't be too bad for them. But knowing that they've got those deep pockets makes the duo lane even more interesting because it's not necessarily going to be the same 1v1 we've been watching for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, agreed, Gore. I think the duo lane should be fun as far as a matchup goes between these two teams. I think there are great matchups really across the board. I think Nayhoo versus Joshy in mid, actually a very sneaky good one here as far as North American SCC matchups go. Delnyyy has really impressed me in the past out of the solo lane as well. I think anywhere you look, this matchup gets closer and closer the more you zoom in on it. Let's see where we fall in picks and bans for game number 1. And I think, Gore, when I talked to Trelly a bit about it during our cast.
You've been talking to other casters? I don't know if I could play a jealous person type. I laughed immediately.
No. I was going to feed into it, but we did undercut the tone a bit. I have been talking to Trelly.
Yeah.
I figured I should
He's
let
a good
you know.
dude.
Great guy. It feels like the Hounds are the shoe-in, right? I mean, they still have plenty of matches to play.
Yeah.
But really, competition for the second team to make it out of this event and make it to group stages of Worlds early in January. Yeah, you might favor the Sages strictly because they're second seed coming into it, but I think top to bottom, you could give any team a shout here, and it's who shows up later on this weekend. Yep. So this one, again, any small advantage you can get, being on the best side of the bracket, I think makes a big difference.
And honestly, it's exactly what you said, right? Everybody was so close in the standings, so close throughout Phase 3. I mean, even the Weavers, despite the fact that they were, I believe, 0-5, they were still a team capable of pushing people to 3. They were always on the cusp of that victory.
Just went to 3.
Unfortunately, they fell the same scenario they did in regular season, right? They went to 3. And then weren't able to match too much. And so I think that this is one where not only standings-wise, if you look at Phase 3, but I think player-wise, you had mentioned a lot of the matchups. I think solo, jungle, mid, and duo lane, top to bottom, there's an interesting matchup everywhere you look this set.
Yomi Tanuki, they want to get pressure rolling early, Gore, and not only pressure, but semi-global and global pressure. They've got the Thor out of the jungle, or do they? Because they've also locked in a Dashboardzhi. So you've got Palau, you've got Defender of Olympus, you've got Taunts, and you've got an Anvil of Dawn already if you're the Yomi Tanuki, Gore, and their team fight's looking good.
Yeah, honestly, and I really like the way that they tackled their bans as well, right? You're looking at it, especially some of the highlights we watched, Delnyyy was a very problematic person to have to deal with. So you ban out the tier, ban out the Bologna, control that. You get yourself a matchup that you can feel a little more confident in, assuming that this Thor now with the Dodgy there is going to throw it over into the duo lane, into the solo lane. Then you're going to be able to hold your own, take out some of the unfavorable matchups, although Thor, we've seen a lot of wins for the God lately. It's just kind of up in the air. I think it's a coin toss right now, what we're going to see. Haven't seen him in solo in a while, but
no.
He's been playing pretty well. I have high expectations.
Agreed. Baba Yaga, I think, carries
higher
expectations for me in my mind. Now, that's been limited to some individual picks, especially over in the EU SCC. Players like Angry have really enjoyed this pick. And so for the Xibalba Storm, you're going to give it over to Joshy here out of the mid lane. Does provide you good scaling. Should this game go longer, if you want the Warlock staff, the Book of Thoth, Charon's Coin, things like that, you'll get there on the Baba Yaga just a little bit quicker. So later on in this game, Gore, you're looking at a Cupid who will scale nicely, a Baba Yaga, and then a Camazotz for a bit of a curveball.
Man, yeah, I like the Storm's team comp. Like, as a 5 stack, I just like their team. Because, like you said, you've got a Baba Yaga, late game damage is going to be insane. You got a Cupid, late game damage is going to be great. Maui, who's going to be set up. Guan for healing and for engage. Camazotz, who is really good at getting in there and starting a fight, and really good at getting out of there in the event things go south. A lot of survivability for him, a lot of healing. I think if this game goes long, the Storm are going to be able to just outstand the Tanuki.
And then Gora, Poseidon to end the draft here for the Tanuki. It's a bit of a skill check later on in the game. We'll see how game number 1 breaks down. Who finds the momentum in game number 1?
That's right. It's the Yomi, the Tanuki, and the Xibalba Storm, our last set of the day, and our first look at these two teams in their playoff run. Remember, only 2 teams from this entire event this weekend are going to be joining the EU, SCC, and the other SPL teams for one last chance at the Smite World Championships. It's J-Mac, it's Mifflin, and it's Doug in game number 1 between the Tanuki and the Storm. And seeing this Baba Yaga, now this is something that we normally would see kind of reserved for the EU side. Those guys like to play towards the 35, 40-minute games. Not something super common over here in North America, Mifflin.
No, we are much more accustomed to just fight. That's it. we're just fight in North America. Sometimes around objectives, at other times just not around objectives. But looking at both these compositions, J-Mac, I think I tend to echo the sentiment that Gore had brought up. I really do like how Xibalba Storm have pieced this one together. You've got non-committal initiation from Oceans. Maui, just an incredibly strong pick once he gets a couple of levels. Right now, not looking so strong. Should be able to work his way out of there. You've got really good late game sustain from Delnyyy, and potentially some first blood potential here.
Well, swing in, gets the beads away from Shipigami, but Ocean's a step too far forward, swinging into enemy territory. And goodbye goes the support of the Xibalba Storm. It's Tanuki who strike first.
That's an oops right there. That's called an omega oops situation. Oceans leaps into a already beadsing Shinigami and an entire minion wave before he had resustained. Fortunately for Oceans, died before he'd used too many of those HP pots, so gets to hold on to 3 of them as he limps himself back to lane. Relic loss, pressure loss, and off the back of what started as a phenomenal fight for Xibalba Storm. Yomi Tanuki now, with MagicFeet even hovering in the jungle, might be able to bring the engagement to them again.
Oceans yanks Dashboardzd back in, but that's a double taunt for the Athena, but not much more follow-up to be had there. And this Athena has just been a menace in the support role, seemingly all day. It feels like wherever this Athena goes, wins tend to follow, especially if you can get even just a slight lead onto this Athena, whether that be in the dual lane, whether that be by rotating over towards mid and trying to get your mid lane or your jungler kind of farmed up here. Dashboard just putting up that pressure. Ocean's gonna pull Dashboard in, but that's really just to bring the damage closer to him.
Yeah, just stay here for a second. Maybe InMyZen will throw some auto attacks back. Unfortunately, Zen on the retreat didn't want to tank up that minion wave, so the pool goes unanswered. Xibalba Storm certainly have got the potential to turn this duo lane around, but I imagine it's going to be closer to level 6. Yomi Tanuki have got the opportunity to take over to 5 first. And Wild Hunt, just a phenomenal power spike the second you gain access to it. Otherwise, Fields of Love, Landfall, both really strong tools. You haven't got the Heavenly for Dashboard, so Fields of Love should likely find value in this lane pretty consistently, especially if you can take over to 5 in the next 60 seconds before Shinigami gets those beats back and available. We'd already talked about Xibalba Storm's draft and how strong it is in late game, but Yomi Tanuki have got themselves some really strong synergies in their draft as well. MagicFeet and Nayhoo just powwow into Kraken every single time. Failing that, Dashboard, Confound into Kraken, or Anvil of Dawn into Kraken. You've got phenomenal facilitation on the side of the order. So it's about limiting that aggression in the early. If you can desync some of those abilities, force MagicFeet to use his ultimate defensively, maybe Nayhoo has to peel for himself with Kraken, as Poseidons generally do. All of a sudden, some of that team fight presence of Tanuki's draft will lose a lot of its efficacy.
The main thing I'm looking at for the Yomi Tanuki squad, anytime I see a Dodgy, instantly I go to, okay, is Dodgy going to be the one taking beads away? Is Dodgy going to be the one capitalizing on the beads? I think the question may be asked already when you just look at the dual lane here. Zen I was going to say he turned into a pig, but with this skin, turn into a little fish. He'll flop away. But you got an Athena there. You don't need to worry about being the one to burn those beads late game. So, in theory, I'd imagine with Athena and a Cernunnos, as well as a Thor, plenty of opportunities to take beads away from one of these carries. Probably not going to happen here. Joshy will go into the home sweet home to keep MagicFeet at bay. No Palau used this time around, but an ult burn from the mid laner.
Yeah, just worried about the damage from MagicFeet there. Preemptively going to the home sweet home does prevent the Palau. I think probably would have been a bit better for Joshy to try and force out that ultimate from MagicFeet first, but with Book of Thoth already ready to be finished, heading back to base had to be on Joshy's mind regardless, so is able to do so. But now not having access to that ultimate means a rotation from MagicFeet should likely force those beads. If I'm MagicFeet, I'm thinking about that. If you can get that relic off of Joshy, all of a sudden Dashboardzd has a lot easier time just rotating through and forcing some of these engagements. Could come back to bite him, so long as something happens before that cooldown comes back up. If you're allowed to home sweet home defensively every single time and hold on to your relic, I mean, Joshy just doesn't care. He's stacking up in the early. Wouldn't be surprised if that Book of Thoth is flanked by a Warlock staff and you just play it real slow for the first 15 or so minutes.
And the beauty of that Baba passive means he's going to stack up that Thoth and any other stacking up that he goes for way faster than any other god could hope to obtain. As you can see, he's already triple or more of what Nayhoo is able to do so far. Red buff does get picked up in the mid lane for the Xibalba Storm. And I think I'm going to keep a lot of eyes on towards this mid lane, not just for the fact that MagicFeet probably should be trying to camp this Baba Yaga, keep the relics down, make this god, this late game scaling god, feel a little bit uneasy in the early to mid game. But we haven't really seen that pressure put onto him. Joshy is able to stare at an Athena and just say, all right, I'm going to channel my dash, jump away, and go right back to the tier 1 tower, ult back up for him.
Yeah, I mean, even in that situation, Dashboardzd, if he connects Confound, doesn't really have the follow-up nearby. Nayhoo locks eyes with Dame, but no more damage afterward. Vampiric Bat slightly off the mark. The dive potential Xibalba Storm's draft will rear its head eventually. Even Joshy going to get involved in that dive as well with Home Sweet Home in the late game. Just a massive HP shield, especially with Warlock Staff, should allow you to just W key with the rest of your draft. So Yomi Tanuki, I'm thinking, really need to get involved earlier rather than later. I'd like to see maybe some rotations over towards Dame, force out that Bat out of hell. You haven't gotten any other way to escape some of those situations, put some pressure in the jungle. Delnyyy, if the cavalry charge falls off, Palau finds him pretty easily as well. Otherwise, even Oceans could be susceptible. Goes for Gauntlet of Thieves in first slot. We've been seeing a lot of male renewal from these supports. That gives you a lot more defense early, whereas Thieves, you're a little bit more mid to late game slanted, which means 11 stacks in. It's going to be a little while till Oceans gets the full value of that item.
Yes. Stacks for all three on the left to mid side of the map. Dashboardzd goes in, finds the taunt, catches the dash of Zen, and that's an instant beads from the Cupid. Perfect opportunity now, and a great target for MagicFeet if he wants to make a priority to gank over towards this Cupid. Because Zen's going to be a little unsafe for about the next 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, lost that beads, and Sunder used by Dashboardzd means there was a whole lot of kill threat there. So Zen likely going to play Barracuda style. Like when you're getting camped, just sit in that tier 2, wait for the wave to come to you. That style of play does open you up to this, though. Purple buff looked at by Dashboardzd. MagicFeet hovering nearby as well, but with the support in jungle of Xibalba Storm and even Joshy just nearby would make it a very risky call to invade that purple. So Yomi Tanuki will not be taking the bait this time around. Instead, confirm the neutral farm. Grab the scepter, rotate through, look at mid camps as well. Make sure you're not risking too much.
Zen caught out for a moment, but Fields of Love will completely end that engagement. But it does send Zen back to base, so he might lose out on this next wave that does end up going through. Meanwhile, right side of the map, I have to keep my eyes on Snaddy as he is able to proxy farm a wave away and then also take both back Harpy camps from the Xibalba Storm. Delnyyy trying to repeat that on his side of the map, but instead it's run insta-2, but that'll soon be a 3v4. Wall does block off Delnyyy. Probably wish he could walk through that one, but Snaddy locks him in for a little moment. The rest of the team with the Tuki shows up, and it deters that fight entirely. So I'm wondering where MagicFeet goes from here. I mean, you have a Cupid, no beads for 70 seconds. no real threats been put onto Joshy. MagicFeet's playing a very calm early game.
He is. He's spending a lot of time in the jungle, farming up very well. Already about a half-level lead over Dame, who's been similarly having a bit of a slow pace to his jungle, just hovering, grabbing all the farm that you can, trying to scale up. Difference being, MagicFeet goes down Mace Tree a second time. Jotun's into either Brawlers or Crusher in next slot. Whereas Dame could be Heartseeker, could be Transcendence. Based on pace, probably leaning a bit towards Transcendence.
Could be to go towards stack down in there for Dame. Then into the solo lane. I mean, Snaddy versus Guan. 1v1. Probably not much to be had there, at least. Once we see some kind of interaction with the junglers over on the right side. So probably Solo will remain solo island for quite some time. Had a little skirmish over towards at least the Scorpion. Ultimate force out of the solo laners. Snaddy will crash back down and teleport back to his tower. Does have his TP up and quite a bit of gold in hand, sitting on 2,400 in pocket. It's a near full item he can go back and get, and it will be a Glad Shield, immediately second item.
Massive power spike for Snaddy, a little bit of CDR, some power, some survivability. Could help out with some rotations towards mid. Neither mid laner been under threat just yet. I'm surprised that Joshy elects to not go towards stacking once more. Instead, likely going to be a Charon's coin in that next slot. A little bit of penetration, some power. Never does any harm, but again, based on pacing of the game, based on Baba Yaga's passive as well, gotta think that Warlock staff could have suited him.
Triple stack.
Yeah, triple stack it, why not? Whereas Nayhoo, it's gonna be the Divine Ruin in next slot. Deals some of the self-sustain and team-wide healing. Dame with the Vampiric Bats, Delnyyy with his heal, even InMyZen on this Cupid, giving over a lot of sustain to his team. First objective looked at, Dame spots it. Pyro going quick.
It's going down, but good body blocks out of the Yomi Tanuki's support. We'll make sure that Dame cannot steal that one away. So first major neutral objective of the game does go to the Yomi Tanuki, and we take a look at the roundup of the gold. 2,000 that Tanuki have been able to build up with just a single objective in that Pyromancer, and that's not a whole lot of gold going their way, about 500 or so from that objective. Is Yomi Tanuki, their farm has just come elsewhere across the map, or maybe so. He's been keeping Zen under that tier 1 tower. Not too often he's had a chance to leave there, especially when MagicFeet and Dashboardzd have been making constant rotations towards his purple.
Yeah, Shippigami just been getting every single bit of the neutral farm. Has the better end of the 1v1 as well. Zen forced to use the beads. Should be able to make his way out of there unless Dashboardzd can catch him.
Taunt is there. The beads were already gone. So Shippigami credited to the second kill of the game. Both of them now on the ADC for the Yomi Tanuki to keep not only Zen but Oceans behind as well. It's 1 kill apiece onto the dual lane of the Xibalba Storm. Oceans goes for a very early Magi second item to try and deal with some of the CC, and I don't blame him. When I'm staring at Athena as a support, I'm probably picking up that item as well when Snaddy finds a solo kill in the backline between the two mid towers.
I mean, that's an easy pickup. Dame headed towards his speed buff, already low HP. Snaddy says, hey, I got global presence. You're on my side of the map. You are under threat. He's able to pick that one up for himself. I was surprised to see Xibalba Storm reset themselves, knowing that 2 members of Tanuki were diving the tower. It was only MagicFeet keeping 2 or 3 members of the Storm at bay in the jungle. Dame dropped to about 20%, MagicFeet as well. Neither one of them used their ultimate, but it was a complete disengage afterward. Xibalba Storm likely would have had an opportunity to rotate back through, maybe try and catch Dashboardzd on his rotation out, or try and finish off the kill on a Shippigami instead. Completely reset themselves in neutral. Dame to the right side. The rest of the team towards their own back camps, and with that space, Yomi Tanuki take the objective, and they take 1 more. Bump themselves to 3 on the board, and a pretty substantial lead considering how early in the game this is. It's been a very low impact, low aggression, low kill count game, but Yomi Tanuki have stretched every single advantage they have to the absolute limit.
I mean, a kill onto Zen leads to Gold Fury for Tanuki, and then Snaddy able to find a solo pick onto Dame between the 2 towers. That's now net the Yomi Tanuki a 4,000 gold lead up over the Xibalba Storm with just those 3 kills. 4K experience as well, and you can see that it's starting to show its way through, especially over in that dual lane. Shippigami getting 2 levels up there mid, even has 2 levels up for Nayhoo. Joshy has not been able to get as much farm. He's been having to split so many of these camps. I didn't notice that Ocean's had to go through multiple times just to help guarantee that red buff goes their way.
And even when Joshy isn't splitting farm, Nayhoo is at least able to go solo camps whenever he wants. One of the main benefits of Poseidon is that title meter giving over so much movement speed, the ability to maneuver around the map. just incredibly powerful. They're able to rotate towards the green camp, could go to those backs if he so chooses. Nayhoo already nursing about a level-and-a-half lead, very close to hitting some significant power spikes as well down the restored artifact tree. And nobody from Xibalba Storm has tried to check him. Game, a very quiet game so far. Nearly at the bottom of that gold charts. Hasn't gotten involved in too many of these fights either. Damage output not quite there, still stacking up. That Transcendence, yeah, only
bottom.
293
Wow.
from this Camazotz. And Camazotz, I don't think I need to, I'm not breaking news here. This is not a pick you lock in for his absolute late game. He is a phenomenal bully throughout the early. Screech, Vampiric Bats, massive power. Just haven't seen it just yet. And the further behind this team starts to fall, the more difficult it is to start executing on that Camazotz playstyle. Once that Transcendence is done, we need to see him get active.
I mean, 293 is... You can
That's
almost
like
double that
Screech.
with Screech or Vampire Bats. One of those two would be able to do that much or more damage. So it has been very quiet from him. Oceans as well, kind of low. I guess we
That's
can't talk
Maui.
about player damage though, because I mean, if you want to be honest, Nayhoo's also there, but you know his team's also taken 2 objectives. Kraken was used on the Gold Fury earlier, so holding on to that for now. So a passive damage game from a couple of players out here, but Farm has gone the way of Yomi Tanuki because of that more passive playstyle. Because, as you say, for Nayhoo able to travel between camp to camp so much faster than the rest.
There it is.
Bat Screech hits. That ought to like triple his player damage. Yeah, there we go. 900, almost 1,000 now.
This is an explosive game from Dame.
got it.
I mean, my man is putting up numbers now. Pyromancer spawning very shortly. Dashboard lines up, spots a couple members of the Storm hovering in the jungle. Seems to me Tanuki would really like to move in towards Pyromancer as quickly as possible. Their composition really good at burning objectives, and they've also got the best secure on map as well. That Kraken doesn't really have an answer from Xibalba Storm. I mean, you could toss out as many fire bolts as you want. It's just not matching the raw burst potential of this Poseidon. Even Tidal Surge, likely one of the better tools on map at that. So, Yomi Tanuki with vision on the Fire Giant. Traded. Xibalba Storm have similarly got a normal ward on the Pyromancer as well. We'll have to likely find a pick before they move in towards that objective. If both objectives are on the map at the same time, we're about a minute out from Gold Fury spawning, it does open the opportunity to the Storm to just trade out. Okay, Tanuki want Pyro, we'll go Gold, or vice versa. Instead, it's the Storm getting active on map once more, actually pulling the Pyromancer. Just heat-checking Yomi Tanuki. I don't think the Storm are really in a position where they want to force a fight or force a coin toss on objective. So that was just, hey, if you show up, we're out. If you don't, awesome. That's great. We get to close up this gold gap. But unfortunately for the Storm, Tanuki are aware of it, and now they're on the scene.
Pulled it and have wiped it off the map right away. Yomi Tanuki grab a Pyromancer. A little bit more gold now for the team, and sends that lead to 5,000. Zen will answer back with a tier 1 tower of his own, assuming he gets a couple more shots in there.
Got it.
That'll at least answer and drop it back down to only 4,200 gold. But again, that's 4,200 gold off the back of 3 kills and only 3 kills by the Yomi Tanuki. It just feels like when Dashboard and one other player, doesn't matter which one, show up towards any of these objectives, the Xibalba Storm just, they say, all right, cool. You know what? We don't want to take this Pyro. You know, we don't want to fight over this, but it feels like this got to be a team that needs to try and get those fights going. I mean, you talk about Maui with his initiation from range with that landfall. Maybe just throw out that ultimate, see if you get anything from it.
I'm not even certain that Oceans has actually channeled it just yet. Could find some value from it here if Shinigami gets over aggressive. I know it's difficult to want to rotate into a lane that's already 2 levels down. Kinside's finish for Shinigami at that, so even the tanky targets of Xibalba Storm will struggle in their battles up against him. Fury's back up. No answer from Xibalba Storm. You can't just go over and do the Fire Giant, not this early in the game. So Yomi Tanuki, just by generating threat, could force Storm to rotate in. Keep your eyes on the Soul Laners. That's generally an indicator of when the fight's going to happen. Delnyyy has already made the rotation, his first to a team fight this game, 18 minutes in. And just behind him is Snaddy, but he's got the global presence, and he's already stolen those back camps. He's grabbing mid camps on the way as well. So where Xibalba Storm are threatened and forced to rotate in, Snaddy takes the scenic route. He's on cruise control. He grabs some farm on the way and continues to push Yomi Tanuki's lead. And Tanuki are only doing this just by grouping around the Primal Fury. They haven't pulled it. They haven't even necessarily threatened to pull it. But Xibalba Storm so concerned about this gold lead ballooning even further out of control that they're forced to rotate in like this.
Xibalba Xibalba Storm. A lot of people through. Oceans gets taunted back into the Kraken. And the tidal wave after. Shippigami credited to the kill. But all the damage there by Nayhoo. Dunked into the backline by Snaddy. Dashboard, the first to fall for his team. And maybe a turnaround now as both supports are out of the mix. But Zen under the powwow. 3 people chained up, but only 1 pulled in, and it's Nayhoo to drop him in. Shippigami takes down Joshy. That is a 2 for 4. Make it all 5 as Shippigami gets 3 of those 5 during the fight.
Man, Xibalba Storm, that fight was starting off really well for them. I loved InMyZen in particular, just surviving for so long, sinking so much damage into priority targets, but when Shinigami's allowed to free cast the entirety of the team fight, ending it at 100% HP, I think it's pretty clear how that team fight's going to go. And it may have started around the Primal Fury, but it was never about it. Not this late in the game, and not with the fight going as cleanly as it did. Yomi Tanuki take the Fire Giant, the first of this set. Man, with so many towers still on map, with Gold Fury still available, I don't think Tanuki even need to back just yet. We're only just now seeing Xibalba Storm respawn. Put some pressure into these towers. Have Snaddy take out this tier 2. Disengage with ultimate if he needs to. Going towards mid. Grab this tier 1. Instead, it's a reset. Maybe you do get the tier 2 regardless, thanks to that trebuchet, but if Dame's nearby, only just needs to land that screech.
Last one.
Last shot.
Hey!
Man, Snaddy knew, he just knows what he's doing.
Calculated.
He knows what he's doing, man.
But the fight that did start around the Primal, well, transfers its way over to the Fire Giant after a 5-for-2 exchange.
That's pretty
against
good.
the Xibalba Storm. And then they still get the Primal Fury at the end of the day for the Yomi Tanuki. And what started as a 4,000 gold lead, Myth, with only 1 other tower drop, still 4 standing, has now ballooned up to a 10,000 golden XP lead for the Yomi Tanuki. Joshy on this Baba Yaga hasn't been able to get the damage out there just yet. Been sitting real back, very passive. I think still calling back towards Dame. Able to get active in that fight. Got some great damage off during that one, but just feels like the early game has kind of slipped away from the Xibalba Storm. And is there really much fight back as we start pushing towards late game since they are this far behind? Is there a factor for the Xibalba Storm to fight into this Yomi Tanuki squad? I
mean, it's always going to come down to play on field, but a 10,000 gold lead is just incredibly difficult to fight into, especially this early in the game. Are there clear win conditions for Xibalba Storm? No. But do they need to roll over and let Yomi Tanuki do whatever they want? I don't think so either. Joshy on the Baba Yaga has got phenomenal poke, could keep Yomi Tanuki at bay. You've got decent sustain on Xibalba Storm, so if a fight goes long, even with Fire Giant on Yomi Tanuki, should be able to win out on that battle of attrition. So I don't think Yomi Tanuki are going to sleep on Xibalba Storm and just push into a Phoenix instead. Grab everything they can on the map before they need to take an actual committal fight.
Landfall grabs Shippigami. MagicFeet got poked out by Dame. Snaddy's in the sky, and all of the Xibalba Storm have backed away. So Yomi Tanuki will clean wipe all the structures off the map. So now all that's left are birds, but still 1.5 minutes to play with their Fire Giant buff. So they'll make their detour back over towards the Pyromancer, maybe spinned up some of this gold that they've been able to accrue over time. Yomi Tanuki now has a 13,000 gold lead over the Xibalba Storm. This is getting very close to let's get ready for game 2 territory.
I mean,
maybe for me, I'm at, all right, this is, I think I was at game 2 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm of a like mind. That it's just such a incredibly steep hill they would have to climb. But one defense makes it easier. The second defense comes even easier than the first, the third than the second. So a journey of 1,000 steps begins with just one. I could keep throwing out idioms, man. I'm not gonna, let's not sugarcoat it. It's like 13,000 gold. I mean,
this is not easy.
No, it is not.
This is trying to make a mountain out of a molehill.
It's blunder territory. I mean, you gotta wait for blunders here from Yomi Tanuki, and Phoenix Siege is where we've seen it in the past. Xibalba Storm, the only thing they can do is force Yomi Tanuki to earn it. You have to make it actually difficult, be it through ranged poke, be it through initiations from Oceans or Dame getting into that backline. You've got ways. They just become so difficult to execute on when the deck is literally stacked against you. And Yomi Tanuki have done a great job stacking the deck for the last 23.5 minutes. Fortunately, silver lining for Xibalba Storm, you just got 1 minute now. You got 1 entire minute where nothing is likely to happen. You were just waiting on Fire Giant to respawn for Yomi Tanuki to group up there. During that minute, Xibalba Storm have got a difficult equation to solve. Is it worth it to step up to the Fire Giant? What's the value trade? Can we defend our base? Is it easier to defend in neutral territory? I'm thinking you probably want to take the fight around Fire, because these Phoenixes will not last long with a massive lead from the Tanuki and a Fire Giant buff. So instead, take it in neutral territory, and then you can have your assassins maneuver the map a little bit more easily, be way easier to execute on Camazotz game plan in the jungle as opposed to in your own Phoenix. Yomi Tanuki, though, seems to me, they're willing to keep up some pressure by even posturing around this right side Phoenix. They control where Xibalba Storm are allowed to go, and make sure they're not able to step up, get any wards around the Fire Giant. Now, as Fire's getting closer and closer to respawning, Tanuki can back themselves up and know for a fact that Xibalba Storm are at least on the top half of the map.
Snaddy does go back to base, picks up a power potion of his own. Fire Giant will crash in any second, and Yomi Tanuki have already stacked around it. Snaddy the only one not at the pit, but not necessary for how fast this one will go down. In a matter of seconds, the Fire Giant falls to the Yomi Tanuki. But all of them are going to go back to base
We got gold to spend.
immediately after. I mean, how much gold are they sitting on? Like 500? I mean, I guess for...
That's gold per minute, man.
Oh, that is gold per minute. That is GPM. I was like, dang, they're all sitting really close together there. Okay, 1,900 in hand for a Dodgy. That's certainly something MagicFeet can go back and get some good spending on there. But now for the Yomi Tanuki, I mean, it's all Phoenix pushes here. Xibalba Storm, I've got a lot to defend against. They're at a 16,000 gold deficit. It essentially feels like they are playing for a throw from the Yomi Tanuki.
And you're never outside of throw range. I mean, any game is throwable. That is to be sure. It'd be pretty difficult.
We've seen it.
You'd have to do it a couple of times. But there are win conditions for Xibalba Storm. They don't necessarily involve Xibalba Storm's literal execution on their behalf. Maybe a little bit more so relying on Yomi Tanuki making those mistakes. But we've seen crazier things here in the Smite Pro League. Or the North American SCC Championship, I should say. So, for now, Xibalba Storm biding their time and waiting on their side of the map. Yomi Tanuki finally starting to approach the base. It's a 4-1 split with MagicFeet holding it down in mid on his own. Gotta love his odds in the 1v1 up against Dame. Dame probably just hoping he doesn't need to fight. He just wants to keep that wave at bay. Screech pretty decent for it, so long as MagicFeet doesn't feel like taking a bit of damage.
Well, Joshy takes some big damage. Landfall misses from Oceans. Not able to connect with anybody in that regard. Now with the Trebuchet pouring up, Yomi Tanuki can sit back passively and allow this Trebuchet to start doing some of the work towards the Phoenix. 1v1 in the mid. The sustain is there for Dame. He'll stay alive through. Palau trying to disengage from MagicFeet. He will walk back to the rest of the squad who are just hovering around Trebuchet, letting it do all the work for him on the Phoenix. Dame rotating over as well. Did put MagicFeet at critical HP. Taunt in by Dashboardzd. Immediate disengage out with Defender of Olympus. He's out of dodge. But now Snaddy up into the sky. Will he disengage to the rest of his squad? Seems the call should be because no one else is up with him.
Man, that's a team fight that is essentially won off the back of Dame and Dame alone. The rotation in at full HP turns the odds into a 5 versus 4 in a fight that Yomi Tanuki, even with this lead, we're not willing to take. Xibalba Storm, not out of hot water just yet. Gotta keep this Phoenix up. Just a couple stray auto attacks would knock it down. 4 stacks still, Yomi Tanuki. MagicFeet starting to work his way back into the engagement, but didn't win the 1v1 previously. If Dame could fight him again, could keep it easy.
Kraken onto Delnyyy, still alive. Sprute popped, and so has Oceans. He is gone. MagicFeet removes him from the map. And Dame now left alone by himself. He'll get cut off by the rest of the Tanuki and removed instantly. Left bird, 2 kills, and maybe a mid or a right side Phoenix. The minions have pushed up towards the right bird. Zen, Joshy, and Delnyyy to try and defend. Whirlpool catches out Delnyyy. The tidal wave is good. Forces out the horse as well. Jumps off immediately, but he should be fine. MagicFeet again. Forced defensively onto the Palau, but gets the beads out of Zen.
I can't believe it was a Phoenix call there. I thought for certain Yomi Tanuki would try and go for the end. Now with respawns as close as they are, 4 seconds on Oceans, this might just be another complete reset 20 seconds left on the Fire Giant buff, but Snaddy up to the air could find a couple of targets. Xibalba Storm reset themselves. Snaddy does the exact same thing, and as always, the solo laner's a harbinger of what is to come. He resets, the team resets. Time to get ready for one more Fire Giant. The Xibalba Storm, they've been given a second lease on this game. Feels like Yomi Tanuki really could have gone for the end there, but now it's going to be another Fire Giant siege. It's going to be another defense in neutral territory if Xibalba Storm decide to step up. But it won't be easy with your Phoenix down on the left-hand side. The furthest away from the Fire Giant, the most difficult to defend, while simultaneously looking towards the neutral objective.
If a defense on the left bird was hard enough at a 16, 17,000 gold deficit.
Well, you're going to tell me it got worse?
Yeah, 23,000 now.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't go that high.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
unless I'm reading the numbers wrong, and I could be.
that's 22, actually.
Oh yeah, 22,971. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of gold, Mifflin. That
Yeah.
one team is ahead over the other.
And I'm looking at the builds.
So much so that like Shinigami bought a full elixir, and Zen doesn't even have his starter finished yet.
Yeah, and Oceans hasn't got like a legitimate fourth item. Just 2 standard items and upgraded starter, so Maui not tanky, shouldn't be leaping in, I'm thinking.
So not hitting hard either.
Yeah, not hitting very hard.
Not hitting, I should say.
Not hitting hard, and not surviving. If Delnyyy goes back in. Okay, he's out.
He's done 2. Oh, but Zen, or MagicFeet goes up. The chains are enough damage to drop him down. A crash into the backline by Snaddy. Zen is gone. And so is the rest of the squad. Landfall only pulls 1. Oceans will swing out on top of Nayhoo, who is still alive through it all. It is a full-on deicide as Shinigami shuts down Joshy, and the Yomi Tanuki take game 1.
Xibalba Storm just did not show up in the early or the mid, and by the time they decided to fight in the late, deck was stacked. The house always wins, and this time Yomi Tanuki, the name of the game. Just clean stuff, top to bottom. Objective control, team fight control. I mean, 30 minutes in, 20-some-odd thousand gold up. You'd expect them to have the team fight control. I want to see more from Xibalba Storm throughout the early. Yomi Tanuki, no notes. Keep it up.
Maybe change off the Maui. I was not very impressed by Ocean's Maui this time around. Wasn't landing too many of those hooks even throughout the early stages of the game. Saw only a couple of landfalls actually hit anybody, and what it was, typically it was only the support he was maybe grabbing there. We'll see if maybe the Xibalba Storm can change things around in game number 2, see if they can maybe get something to fight into this early. Because I think you're right to say that the early game was just all in control of the Yomi Tanuki. It seemed that they hit the gas pedal, never let off. We'll see if this Xibalba Storm can bring it back. We take it to a break. We'll come back with game 2.
Remember, all these teams fighting this week for a chance to then go play at Worlds. There's a couple steps that we're following here, and it's the Yomi Tanuki that grab a 1-0 advantage in their first set of the weekend. And of course, with Worlds just around the corner, we're officially now under 1 month to Worlds. On the 15th of this month, we're now just a couple days over the 1 month mark, under the 1 month mark. And if you want to celebrate Worlds now, you can do so with a digital loot pack in-game available right now. And you're celebrating because the Atlantis Leviathan's Gilgamesh skin is a part of that loot pack. We've seen some Gilg in our sets already here today. The skin looks amazing. Plenty of other awesome content available in the SWC digital loot pack on sale in-game right now. So if you need to get the holiday and the world spirit going, that's a fantastic way to start things up. And so the Yomi Tanuki Gore, they start their World's hopeful run off with a win here in game number 1. And the big question was, can Shipiigami step up, replacing Snoopy on this roster? I would say a resounding yes after game 1.
And you know what? I think it wasn't just him, right? I think the entire team got to step up. That's there.
Right.
But if you want to highlight it, yeah, the Hunter, very, very solid performance. Nuts KDA towards the end of it. And, you know, to the point where this one felt very, very heavy-handed from the Tanuki, right? Like the Storm, give them a few minutes in the game and things are okay. And you know, you can even see it, highlight it right there. Admittedly, there's a 3,000 gold gap, 11 minutes. Ignore that part. Kills are really close to each other. That might have been the last of it. That second blood, and pretty much from that moment forward, it just felt like it was kill after kill after kill for the Tanuki that led into objective, playing the map incredibly well. I mean, you're looking at two teams that came in, and admittedly, I expected to play very, very close to each other. And one just played better, and that's the Tanuki. And you know, it wasn't clean as in untouchable clean. But when you are able to get a Fire Giant, the first one as early as they did, when you have the gold leads as early as you do, the KDAs the way that you do, you know, I think that they were able to take the fact that they were given essentially a substitute to come in for this, right, to play with Shipiigami. And since then, we're able to not only make Shipiigami look really good, but also make themselves look phenomenal. I mean, we don't normally get to see two games like that in a row, so I have to imagine there's going to be some bumps in the road. But if you're Shipiigami and you have a 6-0-7 game to start, that was your debut for this tournament, then you could go like 2-1-5 in the next game, and you've done plenty for your team.
Yeah, I think we're doing just fine after game number 1. I wonder if the Storm feel like they were a bit CC light in this game. I mean, you had Cavalry Charge, Maui with some conditional CC, Fields of Love for some conditional CC. And so, there, you know, with the big ultimates, you could find the crowd control. Maybe just not as consistently in the lockdown territory that the Storm needed.
I felt certain going out of picks and bans, like looking at the two lineups, I was like, no, that one's just better. Like better, what their draft had theoretically could be played just better. And maybe in a vacuum, drop them again. I had said late game. In a vacuum, drop them in at 25 minutes, even gold, they probably are better. But by the time 25 minutes in game happened, the gold was skewed so heavily in favor of the Tanuki that, it did not matter what their draft was. They could have been playing anything out there.
Well, as we often see in North America, Gore, the game just got out of hand, and the Storm would love to slow things down, or maybe they need to pick up the speed on their own half. And we'll go into picks and bans for game number 2 to see just how the Storm...
It's a very green day.
It is a green day. Fun fact, green's my favorite color.
I thought it was going to be about the band because we said Green Day.
Oh, that's a good one.
You said fun fact, and I was like, oh, he's gonna drop like the album. I think Dookie dropped in 1994 or something.
They did drop Dookie.
Oh, hell yeah.
Sorry, I chuckled myself on that one. Oh goodness gracious. 1994, 1 year before I was born. So
1 year after I was born.
So we're 2 years apart. Is that the way?
I guess
that
that's
works?
what. Yeah, we did some math here.
Gore, do you feel like an old man on the squad? Do you feel like you're herding cats sometimes?
With Mifflin, yeah.
With one of us,
Mifflin will. I will
will
say something. Mifflin will look at me dead in the eyes and say like, he'll just call me a boomer. He called you a boomer like 3 times earlier today.
I'm 27.
You're younger than me.
I'm a millennial. My goodness. Here he is to defend himself. Thor picked first by the Yomi Tanuki. So you want to talk about continuing the pressure, keep that pace up. That's a fantastic way to do so after a good performance in game number 1. We'll add the Cernunnos over to the Xibalba Storm's roster, and that found some value in game 1 for the Yomi Tanuki. Hardly the win condition.
Yeah.
But looked great. I mean, Shippigami specifically I would call the win condition, but happened to be playing the Cern in a really, really strong pick. Plus a Horus, so if you're worried about lockdown and the initiation, Horus score gives you some aggression.
The thing I really want to know is where they're planning on taking this Horus. Because we've had a lot of conversation. I like playing Horus in the support role, but the problem that always comes down with it is very light and specifically single target CC that he's going to bring, and it's only on the 1 cooldown. Versus throwing him over maybe into the solo lane, you've got just a little bit of setup, and then you can still pick up another Guardian to maybe kind of fill the void that is left by him. So I think there's a lot of room potentially for this Horus to be flexible. I don't know. I can't honestly remember if Delnyyy has ever played it, and so maybe it's just pressure for Oceans. I think that we've seen the kind of same balance, but thrown the other way, right? Yep. Single target CC up there for specifically the Horus, and then you throw in a Kukulkan, something that has heavy CC on the other side to really help kind of control and again, kind of counterbalance the fact that he's not going to bring as much to the front line as maybe you would want, unless you're genetics, in which case you're nuts.
Yeah, I will. I'll agree with that, Guan. I'm going to die on this hill. I think Erlang Shen just rubs me the wrong way for some reason. I think it's a fantastic pick, but I feel like it falls behind so easily if you do not get off to this crazy start. I'm just so used to seeing Erlang Shens get behind and later on in the game just not be there. And so I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but as a pick in general, I feel like it's so volatile. And I will gladly eat my words if this Erlang Shen just tears it up here in game 2. I always just worry about
because that's like the other half of it, right? Like if it's like 70% of the time he's gonna go in and it's just a stinker game, right? He's not gonna do too. But the other 30% of the time he's almost hard carrying that game, right? So if you get in the 30%er here, Erlang Shen's gonna feel really solid for you. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. I think you're in against a good comp to do it. You know, the Horus can be helpful early on, right? The warrior scaling is pretty nice, but otherwise, you know, Cernunnos, Hunters like to wait till late game. Chronos likes to wait till late game. Now they've locked into Cthulhu. Cthulhu can be decent early on, at least in survival terms, but likes to wait till late game. There's a reason that it feels weird to say Erlang Shen for me now, because we've said early on Shen so often because it's what you can do. I think if he can get aggressive, especially, I mean, you've got a Thor around you, you've got a Ra, I think that they could really kind of drive a lead home early.
They've got a Ra and a Ram, both wanting to do some sniping and finishing off of kills, you have to imagine, later on.
This is a montage game. That's what they're going for.
It is, with some 1994 Green Day blasting in the background and 360 no scopes from the Ra. We'll see. I mean, there is setup. There's taunts in. There's stuns from Fafnir, stuns from Thor. So you got to imagine there's some CC for the Tanuki to follow up on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, you mentioned the Thor or the Fafnir, but you've also got the pin, which is going to be a either a godsend or the worst thing that ever happened to the Ra. Depends on how much they're predicting the movement. If you pin him right before his damage, but great for the Ram as well. I think they've got a lot of really good team fight. The downside is going to be, at least for the Fafnir, is single target. Most of the time with a Thor wall, you're not hitting a lot of people. If you're hitting 3 people with that, the other team's messing up. So, like, you've done a great job, but they should not be grouped up enough that you're able to find a massive wall like that. So the Erlang Shen maybe is going to have to carry some of that weight. Meanwhile, the other side, that Cthulhu balances out the Horus the way that I wanted it earlier. I think they've given themselves a really good front line for the Storm. They just got to play it up to that level.
Yeah, the Storm. I'm looking at this Chronos, the Susano later on in the game. A dynamic game number 2. Time for the Storm to bounce back, and it's JMac and Mifflin to take us in.
Yeah, thank you so much. Game number 2 between the Storm and the Tanuki. Winner moves on to face the Athenian Sages and right into the action early. That's not the way that you want to start if you're the Xibalba Storm. First blood for the Yomi Tanuki and onto Shippigami once again. Not a great startup. And what was Dame doing there all by himself?
I was about to say that, because, like, that's not your side of the map.
No.
Like, literally, like, you were on Yomi Tanuki's side of the map. It's not even the half of the map that you generally start on, right? Like, if you're starting speed, didn't make a whole lot of sense, did it?
He got a ward, though.
Yo, drop that ward. He knew where he was dying. Like, he knew everybody who killed him. That's a value ward right there. when you look at Xibalba Storm's draft, I think it could very easily fall into the same trappings as we had seen in Game 1, which was Xibalba Storm lost before they were allowed to play the game. I look at your Soul Laner, Delnny's not getting pressure on Cthulhu, not against Thor, or Cthulhu against anybody, really. Joshy's not exactly supposed to get pressure against anybody, but we've seen Chronos do crazier things at zeros on Hex Mambo. But if we're going by traditional Smite knowledge, Nayhoo should just be bullying in that lane. Dame's not going to out-pressure an Erlang Shen either. It's to me like Yomi Tanuki want the exact same game as they had got in Game 1. Just run it all back, pacing it all.
Well, they started the same as Game 1 by getting first blood to Shippigami. So there's step number 1 for Tanuki.
And faster. Their speed run.
Way faster.
Any percent.
Didn't have to wait till anybody got in lane this time. They got to do it right in their own jungle. But man, seeing this Erlang Shen Raw combo, this takes me back to like release Erlang when this was the combo to run. And it was, just as they say, pin into Raw snipe every single time. Used to be you throw a Sylvanas in the mix there and whoever stands up. Like how do you even fight a level 2 like that? At least for now, Nayhoo will be fine under his own heal. He'll be able to sustain up all on his own while we saw rotation from MagicFeet to Duo to try and help with that Scepter and get that benefit over towards his team. The more that you let this Raw solo farm, the easier, and the faster you'll be able to expedite that process to late game.
Yeah, but the same can be said of Joshy, so I think if any team is more so concerned about just solo farming and slow playing the lane, it's Xibalba Storm. They would pay to load in at the 20-minute mark. Sure, you can let Raw farm up, and sure, you can let him stack and have a slow early, and he will do immense damage in the late with Searing Pain, but I'm thinking the value trade would be heavily favored Xibalba Storm. So I'm expecting Yomi Tanuki to make some rotations. And the direct matchup between Ra and Chronos is one that Ra is favored in for the first 10 or so levels. You go into Rewind, that's a standing still target.
Does take a while until that rewind does go through. But we saw even last game on the Baba Yaga where Joshy wanted to get to late game, get a couple of those stacking items up, and be that late game power farmer, that late game hard-hitting mage. Didn't quite get to that stage for the Xibalba Storm. Now, that's also granted to the fact it was a 20,000 gold lead by the time we actually got to see any kind of defense from the Storm. Definitely don't want to get to that point of the game once again. Maybe trying to get a pick towards Nayhoo, make this Raw uncomfortable. I mean, it's a Raw. His only CC immunity outside of beads is he's got to stand still and scream at you.
And standing still in Smite is just not great. Just blanket statement, not a great thing to do. Dashboard in some trouble here. Pulled back in, locked down, Bramble Blast is there. Ocean's hovering nearby. And Xibalba
He's
Storm
stopping backs.
And Xibalba Storm just walk away from. That's crazy. I can't believe that. I thought for certain we're chasing out. You've got Oceans rotate through. He had Fracture and Updraft, I'm pretty sure. Instead, tosses his pressure towards the lane itself. Curious pacing, man. I mean, just curious pacing altogether. Xibalba Storm maybe start their aggression and say, wait, hold up. Look at our draft. It's not what we're here for. Let's go ahead and slow it down. But picks like that, they're not easy to come by. And Dashboard was legitimately very far out of position.
Well, for the duo lane, Shippigami will go back and finish out his Devourer's Gauntlet. It's only 4 minutes into the game to get stacking up on that. Be a little while longer for the Hunter of the Storm to do so, just because of the nature of that first blood that came through. And good support Dashboard will save the entire wave.
What a homie.
For Shippigami.
That's more than one.
That's like a wave and a half that he's ended up saving up there. He's taking so much damage from it. Wouldn't catch any of my supports ever doing that. They're taking that farm. They're going back to base and spinning all that gold up.
Yeah, if I'm Dashboard, I'm like, guys, the gold's better on me. I'm getting defense if I keep it in my pocket. And he wouldn't. You need to get that Gauntlet of Thieves stacked up ASAP. Assuming it is Gauntlet of Thieves. Could be just about anything in that tree at this point. Seems like supports just roll the dice based on pace of game. I'm expecting Thieves from both this time around. Initiation on a Dashboard. Connects. CC's good.
He's out.
But damage is not. And he just walks himself out of there while Shippigami wins the trade on his own. I mean, 3 more auto attacks and Zen's in ult range. Gotta play careful here.
Good news for Zen and Oceans is that Oceans is a Horus and he can heal up his ally there. So Zen won't have too much threat onto his health bar there. Rotation from Dame. Probably won't net much here. Shippigami's going to walk back towards his side. It'll just be a Scepter pickup for the Xibalba Storm, and they'll go over onto Oceans. who can maybe try and make his rotations through. Gotta imagine he's probably wants to go back to base at any given moment. I believe he's heading back now to finish up that Thieves or that Mail for Newell. Snaddy dunks down, lands on the Delnyyy. Ult is still available for the Cthulhu. This is all just damage, more of a heat check for Snaddy to see what he can do up against this Cthulhu.
Did he not? He must not have had Wall or Berserker's Barrage there. So, yeah, I guess, hey, be scared, drop Descent into Madness, and my jungler will rotate through, and Delnyyy says, well, you're not a threat. You're quite literally not using abilities on me. So it's just ultimate loss for the Thor. Could open the door for a rotation from Dame. He's been trying real hard to get involved over in that duo lane, but maybe this Thor now, with only Runeforged in that first slot, not a true dedicated defense item, could be an opportune gank for the Susano. The ability to jet stream chase down the hammer, or even pull to disrupt the hammer, makes Susano very difficult for Thor to deal with so long as that ultimate is down, but we're already getting close to getting it back up.
MagicFeet gets the ultimate out of Delnyyy. And the Descent into Madness will be on cooldown for a little while. All this, original over 5 of Totem Oceans, charging in with ult.
He's thinking about it.
Will join at least over to the blue buff with his team, but now it's a 4v4 with Nayhoo rotating over. Joshy on the outskirts of the fight. Oceans is already dashed in, but he's got that heal to get out. He's got to find a target to get out with. It will be towards Delnyyy, but Typhoon goes through, only hits Snaddy. Dame rooted out, but a quick turtle out for MagicFeet. Gets the junglers both away from the fight, and Dashboardzd will de-transform. All that fighting, but no blood shed between the two teams.
And no buffs dropped yet either. That blue still standing. That blue still under threat from Yomi Tanuki. Snaddy dropping it low. Delnyyy, similarly, no mana. Blue buff is taken. 8 people there. 4 leave, 4 remain, and Yomi Tanuki come out ahead on that one. Small trades here or there could have been just on the knife's edge. If Dame connects with 1 or 2 targets, one or two more targets rather, with his ultimate, could have very well been a phenomenal team fight for Xibalba Storm, but looked at me, he was more concerned about disengaging than aiming his ult.
Shipigamy's going to lose that purple buff, though he is already heading back towards base, so it'll be a little while before he can even go back and try and go for the buff camp. But that's at least a small net positive for InMyZen being able to have not just the enemy buff, but being able to go back to the safety of his own later on to get that. And you think that Zen this game could be one of those win conditions that the team needs. You know, it's starting to not really get crazy just yet. I mean, we're barely sitting, 1,700 gold, maybe closer to about 2K up so far for the Yomi Tanuki off the back of a single kill that happened earlier on. Gotta wonder where the Xibalba Storm try and get something. This isn't it for Oceans. He's got Dame to teleport out to, so he'll be able to get away, but man, Oceans is playing very dangerously.
Whoa.
Dunk misses
Whoa.
Joshy. Wall misses Joshy, and Snaddy will walk out.
Hey, I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You picked the Thor for his globals. You don't have to land them all the time. I'm sure you'd prefer to, but even in just pressuring mid, even in just showing up, Joshy's going to be thinking about that later. Like, what if that Thor dunk did hit me? What if he's up in the air right now? Could control some of those rotations. I don't know. It's mind games, I guess, all the way across the board.
What if he's just like sitting at that Pyromancer right now?
He could be. Could somebody please ward the Pyro? I'm worried.
He's like, is my ward chalice even up right now? No. Okay, well it's down for another minute. Maybe I come back and ward that next time. No, he's got at least a ward available to him with that Vision Shard. So see if it does get into the head of Joshy. I haven't seen him drop one down in a minute, but thankfully for him, he's got a sentry there to give him a little bit of backup on that side. Snaddy wants to go for blue, but there are 3 for the Xibalba Storm to defend there, and great call by Snaddy saying, hey, there's 3 here, let's go ahead and try and get a Gold Fury, but it's hard to out-secure a raw snipe from Nayhoo.
I mean, that was dangerous in that when Nayhoo started channeling raw snipe, his team started dragging it around, spooked by the damage by InMyZen, so clips the Fury and does secure it, but thin margins once more. Ocean's involved in mid, should be able to disengage, but a good slow from Nayhoo keeps him close by.
Joshy and Ocean's backing away. Dame doesn't get the pull onto Dashboardzd, transforms instead. Oceans doesn't get to make it out, and Joshy rewinds right in front of Nayhoo, slowed down. Feed's gone for the Chronos pin. Doesn't get him a taunt will yank him back through. Josh is one hit away, and Snaddy puts him down by crashing down on top. Dame pulls in, Nayhoo sets up for Delnyyy, and is able to get another kill, but Dashboardzd is low. One more hit from Delnyyy, drops it.
Big
Snaddy
whiff.
needs one shot,
Got
and it'll
him.
be the pin from MagicFeet to drop him.
InMyZen wants to return. Snaddy taken out. Rom snipes from a range. Shippigami not quite on the mark. Can MagicFeet survive this one? Absolutely not. Knocked out by Delnyyy, rather. A double kill to him. And Xibalba Storm, they keep it even in the kill department, but that's the only one. Experience and gold still belong to Yomi Tanuki. Fortunately for Tanuki, kill allocation maybe in some of the best targets here. You're not so concerned about Delnyyy picking up 2. That just brings him back to a state of parity. None of the kills land on Joshy, who's your late game win condition, so he essentially is probably the biggest loser in that team fight. Missed out on wave farm, and what little farm he did get was split 4 ways. Otherwise, sent back to the grayscale. Oceans doesn't gain anything either. Doesn't even get credit for an assist, so he doesn't catch up whatsoever. Yomi Tanuki, I think they're just fine with how that one pans out.
It does end up going a 2-for-4 trade, so the Xibalba Storm showing that they can, in fact, show up towards these team fights and really put up a fight against Yomi Tanuki. But gold and experience still in favor. Experience ever so slightly for the Yomi Tanuki, but gold 2,600 up compared to the 4K it was earlier. And again, too scared off by the rotation of 4 of the Storm. Oceans can't catch a break. It seems every time that someone from the Tanuki shows up, he's being CC'd and losing half of his HP immediately afterwards. He'll end up going back towards space as well.
I'll tell you this about Oceans. I'm going to give you a peek into his mind's eye.
W key.
He doesn't care at all. He's getting poked out. He's falling behind. He's not concerned. The only thing he's saying to himself is, guys, I'm creating space. Every ability they're using on me is one they're not using on you, and that is for the best. And Josh is sitting there thinking to himself, thanks, Oceans. I appreciate it. You're right. That searing pain could have been coming my way. That beam could have been for me. So Oceans, able to resustain, heads back to base with a smile on his face.
And immediately jumps back in on top of Dashboard. Dashboard's got a heal of his own in the back pocket via Nayhoo. He's able to jump down that Celestial Beam and keep his teammate alive. As the kills are evened out, but even despite the fact that Xibalba Storm had such a great fight earlier on, the gold is still climbing back up for the Tanuki. You know, the Storm dropped it down to only about 2K, but it's now teetered all the way back up to 3K with, again, not much going on.
Yomi Tanuki just doing a much better job of pushing their leads and extending them. Dashboard has got 4 people looking at him and is just fine with it. Just about no damage coming his way. And even had he been chased even further, still had access to the Draconic transformations. So, just going to continue to be annoying on map. Walking in, slowing down Dame's back, controlling where Ocean's is allowed to rotate, making sure that he's falling even further behind. Now still sitting at level 7, 14 minutes into the game. We're talking 1 level every 2 minutes. Not exactly an ideal pace for Xibalba Storm's support, rather. Whereas Yomi Tanuki, I think Dashboard, with a lead that is as large as it is, doesn't even need to concern himself with farming. If he could just prevent Oceans from doing it, he allows the rest of Yomi Tanuki to split their farm a bit more efficiently and push their leads ever so slightly further. Fortunately for the Storm, Joshy has maintained parity regardless of game state. Your Chronos late game win condition is still just that.
Pyro started. They got secure from Nayhoo. Might need to use it. Xibalba Storm, though. Seal away the Pyromancer and MagicFeet's life. Dashboard transforms, jumps out. But how far can the Lone Dragon go when there are 3 chasing him out? Dashboard goes down to the might of Dame, who picks up a double kill. All throughout that, Nayhoo able to keep the minions out of the tower, but with 5 of the Xibalba Storm down mid, tier 1, Pyro, and 2 kills go to the Storm.
Maybe a Fury as well. Storm has timer on it. Could just go ahead and grab this one and completely close up that gold lead Yomi Tanuki had established for themselves. That was a hyper-aggressive Pyromancer pull in the face of 4 members of the Storm. And even then, Nayhoo was in good position to confirm it, but maybe wasn't quite ready for the DPS from both sides. Maybe was just expecting a steal attempt from the Storm, but they helped DPS it as well, which means Searing Pain just off the mark. Timer no good. Does connect with some of the backliners of the Storm, but considering the fight had already gone so well for the Chaos team, didn't necessarily matter a whole lot. I'm keeping my eyes on Snaddy. Spotted out. Joshy sees him in the jungle, backs himself back up to that tower. Could have been an opportunity to get aggressive. Similarly, opportunities here.
Well, Shippigami instantly smacked by the ultimate of InMyZen, but that's at least a benefit for Shippigami, knowing that AoE CC is now down. But he rolls in to up Horus. Never mind. He's fine, I guess. When you're gonna roll aggressively at 2, and they literally don't even turn to look at you with it, he's doing fine.
Dame was like 15 feet away, man, or whatever we call feet in Smite. He was like 15 units away.
He's just chilling, man.
Yeah, we're taking the
roll
pacifist run.
Roll at him again. I mean, Dame did for like the first, like, what, 12, 15 minutes of last game as a pretty low damage run for Dame. He's definitely made up for more than that, at least in game number 2. 3-2-2 now on the Susano, part of 5 of the 6 kills for his squad. So Xibalba Storm has been doing better of getting active in game number 2 and allowing Joshy to farm up as efficiently as he has on this Chronos. I mean, already level 16. Still about a half level behind Nayhoo, but this is a great position for the Chronos to be in. Now 3 items deep, Poly already built up.
And once you get that penetration from your next item, your burst potential is just going to be incredible. With some of the changes to Chronos, getting, I believe, 30% additional power from that second ability. Just makes it so much burst. It synergizes incredibly well with your Poly. Going to be very difficult for any individual member of Yomi Tanuki to withstand his DPS. Even the tankier targets, Dashboardzd and Snaddy, will have to concern themselves with this Chronos very soon, who is, for the most part, gone unchecked. Only 1 death in the Chronos from 1 team fight about 4 minutes ago. Otherwise, has just been free farming. Nayhoo has done the exact same, though, and it's similar to Poseidon in that Ra just has more movement speed than the majority of the mage cast, which allows him to maneuver the jungle, grab every bit of neutral farm, even take back camps depending on where his jungler is standing. Speaking of junglers, Dame gets involved.
Oh, Nayhoo ults in place.
The wrong direction.
Kind of questionable.
He was worried about
decision there by
CC.
I think maybe he was thinking that, like, he was going to land behind Dame or something like that to try and get the silly shot after. Maybe just CC immunity for something like predicting Typhoon to have come out there, but...
And it would have been a good prediction. Most Susanos on the planet are Typhooning right there. So, and good hover, Doug. I was assuming it was down, but no, that was available and just goes unused. Fine. Maybe Dame was worried about a counter rotation. I mean, Typhoon's pretty non-committal. Drop it on Nayhoo, like he's going to be standing in the center of it. Wouldn't exactly been able to walk out. Don't even need to aim it. Like, you don't have to look at the guy. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. A series of different events, you know?
They're playing chess, and I'm over here playing checkers right now, man. That's how it feels sometimes with some of these mind games that get played by these teams.
Dude, they're playing Mahjong, and I'm playing Peggle, all right? Like, I don't know what's going on.
We're playing tic-tac-toe over here, man. This is a whole new game for the Xibalba Storm and the Yomi Tanuki. But game number 2, still a 2,000 gold lead for Tanuki, even despite the best efforts of the Storm. These objectives have been going their way. The Pyromancer steal, the Primal Fury pickup after. Hasn't really been able to get too much, or I should say it's mostly been everything after the objectives that's just been going the way of the Tanuki.
But with the game being as close as it is, I think Xibalba Storm are just super pleased with it. Joshy able to apply some damage. Snaddy up to the air. No way he goes back in. Nobody on his team in range to follow up. Does dunk onto Delnyyy, but that's just because he was close to his own tower. Now Xibalba Storm realizing Snaddy back to base and no access to ultimate. Have got an opportunity to pull a Pyromancer, and it's going quick.
Delnyyy descends to madness. Buys enough space for the Storm to get the Pyro. But can the Storm get even more? Nayhoo goes for the snipe, slams 2 for 900 a pop. Nayhoo goes down. The snipes, though, off the mark by Shippigami. Not going to take out Dame. It's 2 for the Xibalba Storm on the fight, plus the Pyro. Make it 3 as Snaddy falls down to Delnyyy. MagicFeet and Shippigami, the only ones left alive. And Zen and some of these other players perfectly healthy to try and box back in. In fact, I think Zen is trying to goad his team to go back and keep the fight going. But 3 plus Pyro for the Storm, that evens up the game. And now Opens up the Fire Giant for the Storm.
What's MagicFeet gonna do here? No way he can walk in. All you gotta do is hold on to Fire Giant pressure. Instead, it's a chase for the kill. Shipigami knocked out. MagicFeet still on the retreat. He is a non-factor so long as he hasn't got ultimate, and he hasn't. Xibalba Storm repositioned to the skies. Fire Giant pulled. MagicFeet right back where he was. Go ahead, walk in, bozo. You haven't got the damage. He does.
Okay, he's got it for
He's got the
one.
damage.
How many can he take, though? It's only going to be one. And it was just on the Dame. So Zen and Joshy
What?
both hold on to fire. So that's good news for them. Sucks for Dame that he lost his life. Don't know how one man walked through the middle of five. Literally blinked into the middle of five, I should say. Nobody even tapped him to stop the blink.
Oceans has like all the CC. There's so much CC.
Throwing a Bramble Blast on that side of the pit.
Would have crippled him. You could have crippled him. You could have stunned him.
Dame sitting there with his hands and saying, "Oh, bro, what just happened?"
Dude, MagicFeet.
He's different.
Dude, this guy's
built different.
He's moving different. He's built different. Somebody check this guy's PC. He just went it. He did it twice too. Like he telegraphed it the first time. He's peeking in the window at the Fire Giant. Xibalba Storm chased him out, and he just did it again. And Storm's like, no way.
Bro, he was out here window shopping for what he was gonna steal, and they're like, "Hey, whoa, back up, buddy." And he said, "All right, my bad. Yo, but I kind of do want that VCR though."
Yeah,
and he
unless-
walks back up and takes it.
Yo, this Walkman for free? I got the 5-finger discount. That is absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't tell you, J-Mac. I absolutely could not tell you what lines up to a situation like that. But I can tell you what the situation has left us with. And it's 4 members of Xibalba Storm with Fire Giant, a late-game composition, and a Chronos with plenty of itemization. Get them into the towers, and the rest of the script writes itself. The towers simply will not last long enough.
It's now an actual lead for the side of Xibalba Storm as well. They've been 2,000 to 4,000 gold behind this entire game, and one team fight has now flipped the script. We're now 2,000 up for Xibalba Storm, and having that lead for Joshy. And now 2 games in a row where Joshy on these late game characters, game 1 the Baba Yaga, game 2 the Chronos, he's been left alone to do whatever you want mid. You know, game 1 you can kind of leave the Baba, like not a big deal. You still got that magic to kind of boot with it. But this is a Chronos, man. This is a Chronos in a lane where like 4 people are constantly walking through at any point, and he's gone only checked 1 time. Just doesn't make any sense to me, Miff.
But he's in a good position for it now. And with Obshard finished, his power against God strong too. Oceans to the skies, bringing the team with them. 4 members of the Storm and the Phoenix, and where'd it go?
Dead. That's where the Phoenix is. It's now ashes, ready to respawn in a few minutes later. The Yomi Tanuki, their only response was, well, Nayhoo sniped them for like 1,000 damage, but they were all full HP, and the Phoenix is gone along with it.
Fortunately for the Tanuki, they've got structures elsewhere that will slow down the siege. I don't imagine we see another Phoenix fall. Now you've got some time to push out those left side waves as well. Xibalba Storm, ball's in their court, man. I mean, the gold lead not super significant just yet, but a gold lead at all as we start to approach the late game with a team fight as strong as Storm's is. Descent to Madness, Joshy, both incredibly powerful. The repositioning that Oceans affords his team, even for a Descent into Madness Cthulhu, could make it very difficult for Yomi Tanuki to figure out where they want to stand in some of these team fights. But that doesn't mean that Tanuki still haven't got some opportunities. Joshy is very squishy. Something we had seen from one of the other premier Chronoses in the SCC, Hex Mambo's mid laner Zeros, was he would go for stacking items, pick up a Warlock staff, maybe a little bit of defense later on in the build, and that would allow those rewinds to have a bit more room to operate, a bit more space in some of these engagements. But now, start rewind. This is a full squish Chronos, and it's not an alternate timeline either. It's a Pendulum of the Ages. So if Nayhoo can connect those ultimates consistently, could constrict what Joshy's capable of doing.
Storm group up is 5 to mid. All they need is this poly shot Chronos to get a view in the tower. Aegis now removed from Zen. He'll heal back up with what little damage he did take before the Aegis goes through. But tier 2 now removed from the mid lane. Tier 2 from right lane also gone for the Yomi Tanuki. So it's just the 2 Phoenixes left standing. But Look how far the minion wave got pushed up over on left. Still some time for Tanuki to operate. And with this 6,000 gold deficit, I mean, is this lead so far gone with this Phoenix going to become up maybe about 30 seconds to a minute after Fire Giant goes through? Is this a point, Mifflin, that the Yomi Tanuki could walk up and try and take a fight around Fire?
I'm not certain that you need to take the fight, but because of Ra being on Yomi Tanuki, you could just hover nearby on Fire Giant. Reprise what MagicFeet had done and just window shop around the fire, and Xibalba Storm will not feel confident in their ability to secure it. There's no way that they could say, all right, let's just coin toss against Searing Pain and hope that our Polynomicon proc is strong enough, or the Unravel is strong enough, or maybe a Typhoon from Dame. So, Yomi Tanuki can send one member over to left, preferably someone with teleport. Snaddy hasn't upgraded his just yet, so I take it back. Doesn't matter who it is. Keep that minion wave at bay, and make sure that Nayhoo is within ultimate range of the fire. That's all you have to do, and until then, especially considering the pace of the last Fire Giant, Xibalba Storm will try and chase out the fight. If Yomi Tanuki can take this fight long, by, what, 1 more minute for this Phoenix to respawn, could keep things a bit closer to even.
Good poke there. Dame and MagicFeet have a 1v1. That goes in favor of MagicFeet, but that is an ultimate burn by the Erlang Shen, not getting the one out of Dame, but that does TKO Dame. He's going to have to go back to the fountain, so it gives the Tanuki an opportunity at a power play. Some poke towards Delnyyy, as he does eat at least 1 proc of that Sunder, but not enough to really deter the Cthulhu, as he can teleport right back if need be.
Left side Phoenix respawning very shortly. Someone's going to have to go deal with it. It's MagicFeet, who's drawn the short straw of having to go to the left side. Will show himself on map, which means Xibalba Storm realize 5 versus 4 here, and man, that's looking kind of close. MagicFeet should have the defense.
Snaddy goes up to the sky. Distance madness from Delnyyy, and a big snipe onto
massive.
Dame. The dunk almost takes him out, but Snaddy will close that one out. Nayhoo's still alive. Ocean's out of position. The 5v4 has gone south for the Xibalba Storm as Nayhoo pulls off a massive snipe to nearly KO Dame and allow his team to finish the job.
Is MagicFeet a hindrance or a help here, man? I mean, get him out of the fight and things just get so much easier. On the right-hand side, Nayhoo comes up massive with that ultimate, so clean, freehand. Wasn't even playing off CC there. Xibalba Storm just lose the thread. Oceans goes in on his own into the back line. Couldn't tell you what he was trying to accomplish, maybe create a bit of space, but his teammate Dame had already fallen. And now, Yomi Tanuki, the gold leads closed up a little bit. Left side, Phoenix respawned and pushed all the way to the tier 2 on the other side, so you're not even really concerned about a backdoor attempt on the left side, Phoenix. And still 5 seconds on respawn means they've got the advantage around the Fire Giant now. It's been pulled and it's burning quick.
Now it's 4v5, beam and the snipe.
God.
Joshy is just deleted. Nayhoo on point with the snipe once again. The Yomi Tanuki's mid laner coming in big. Stun onto 2. Zen tries to go away, but Snaddy will chase him down. Cut off the path and dug right down on top of him. Zen removed from the map. MagicFeet, credit to the kill.
That's 2 dead for 40. Dame stepping forward. Dashboard already on transform. Could spot him out. Fire Giants pulled, resustaining with Ra. But Xibalba Storm are maintaining presence.
Oceans walks forward and his health bar is gone. Didn't even need the help of the Fire Giant that time. Dame, goodbye to the Tsukuyomi as well as he teleports in to his own demise. And Delnyyy doesn't even get to walk out this time. It'll be Shippigami and the Tanuki to put him in the dirt. But still a lot of structures on the map and a Fire Giant. The Tanuki will get their D aside and take the objective.
The 3-man defense attempt wasn't great when it was 3 men. When Oceans went on his own and it became 2, there was still an opportunity to disengage. Dame did not necessarily need to walk up there. Could never accuse this man of cowardice, goes in regardless, and loses his life. So now Fire Giant on all 5 of the Tanuki, and towers dealt with expeditiously. And still 20 seconds left on both Delnyyy and Dame. Keep up the siege. You've got the sustain, and you've got the damage.
Dashboard will heal up under the beam of Nayhoo. Nayhoo's had some pretty big snipes so far, and he'll throw another one out just for the flair of it. We'll take the right side bird as well. Xibalba Storm have flipped the game on its head once more. Xibalba Storm, who was able to take the lead away, and man, look at the pool that we have made here.
That's
this
a parabola.
Back right. That's the word I was looking for, a parabola. Going right back up now for the Tanuki.
Shouts Mrs. White. Thank you very much for teaching me parabola. I never thought it would come up in my adult life, and it has. Yomi Tanuki formed their own.
Couldn't even tell you who my algebra teachers were.
Was that algebra?
I think that was algebra.
Sure, man. I'll take your word for it. Now we get to evaluate Siege. And Yomi Tanuki have got pretty decent Siege. It's not walk in, take your Phoenix. It's walk in, taunt, Searing Pain, and pray that that Searing Pain connects onto a squishy target. Zen and Joshy, very, very susceptible. InMyZen in particular, no Aegis for the next 40 seconds. Means that he's going to be playing safe for the next 40 seconds. Yomi Tanuki do not want to get caught out on map. Haven't grouped up just yet, but are also not moving in towards Xibalba Storm's side. Got to figure out where they want to start this siege. Generally, we'll see a 4-1 split with compositions like this. I'd like to see Snaddy be that one on the split. Generally, it's the jungler, but with having global presence from this Thor, having him just be capable of generating pressure in a lane and then simultaneously be able to join the fight if it starts to go south on the other side, so valuable. Instead, it will be MagicFeet acting as solo agent. Shows himself on map. Not just yet, actually. Still waiting to get eyes on at least a couple members of Xibalba Storm before he's willing to move up. Good patience from him. A pick here could cost you your entire siege. Left side tier 2. It's a foregone conclusion. That'll go down. Xibalba Storm no defense. And finally, Yomi Tanuki have got eyes on a couple members of the Storm. Means that MagicFeet can start to step his way up. 1v1 will be junglers on the center. 4v4 on the left.
Yomi Tanuki. See if maybe they can bait out an ultimate from Delnyyy. Would be huge for the Tanuki to start this fight, but wall off the mark by Snaddy. MagicFeet scared out of the Phoenix by Dame. Xibalba Storm waiting for Tanuki to make the first move under the Phoenix. They've got some good punish with it between Oceans, and even between Zen if he can find a good ultimate here, but slow play by the Tanuki. MagicFeet not willing to step up into the bird against Dame. Dashboard gets the transformation. Sunder procs on to the Fafnir, but a quick leap away from Dashboard to reset.
So transform, disengage. Not the standard combo. Nayhoo, you got CC on your team. You don't have to do that. I mean, he's hitting it. Zen's got to go back to base. Here's your opportunity. Move in.
Delnyyy up into the madness, but he is already a quarter HP, and so is Oceans. Bet he's wishing he had that snipe back through. 1, 2, 3.
Got him.
It's good for Shippigami. It's a highlight reel for the carries of the Yomi Tanuki. Snaddy slams down. Triple knock up there by Dame with the Typhoon, but immediately back out. Nayhoo doesn't have ult, so they'll reset and head towards the bird.
Mid Phoenix, the only one standing. Fire minion waves already leaking in on the right. 4 members of Xibalba Storm still strong. Joshy access the ultimate. Mid Phoenix no longer there. Yomi Tanuki, all it took was Nayhoo to land an ult to open up the last fight, and he's got it back.
Now he still has setup, but has proved that he doesn't need it.
Or want it.
Has that Laminus Opportunity available as well. Taunt in. Goodbye, Zen.
Good lord.
And add another one with Oceans. Dame down. It's a double for the mid laner, Nayhoo. Get him off the Raw, man. This is gross. I can't stand it.
The Raw looks good for Nayhoo. He's playing a different game. My man was not positioning in the team fights to land any other abilities. Watch the engagements around Fire Giant or around Gold Fury. I'm going to be way back here, as far back as I can. You just let me know when the CC's coming. And if it didn't, I'll shoot it regardless. And just lands it consistently every single time.
He's just good on this god. What can I say? When you get a player who's this good on Raw, I mean, I'm getting lights back towards like early Season 9 Benny Q when he was bringing this out during the qualifiers. If we're going to be seeing more Raw coming up towards Worlds like this, it's going to be a very exciting SWC. Good game out here by the Yomi Tanuki. They take game number 2 in the set. That's it for me and Myth. On the desk to close out the day.
And so the Snipes get it done here in game number 2. That's a heavy execution composition that the Yomi Tanuki draft for themselves, and it is an overwhelming amount of confidence put into their carries. And the carries, they step up, and they knock it out of the park here, especially when you get a sub, now full-time team member, Gore. Shippigami added to this team. You're putting a lot of confidence in Shippigami to hit the snipes, to hit the damage. Fantastic game from the Yomi Tanuki.
Let's talk about some well-placed confidence. You know what I mean? After game 1, I'd even said it. You don't have to have a great game 2. You could you can just coast in game number 2 and you're going to be fine. You've done enough for your team, enough for your squad to make this valuable. Then steps up and knocks it out of the park in game 2 anyway, right? I mean, being able to have that kind of back-to-back performance, again, twice in a row, is really good, especially up against a team like the Storm. I mean, this is not a really lopsided matchup, as you would expect. You know, we start the day with the 1st and the 8th. These two are right next to each other when it comes down to the way seeding goes. So with the way North America was going in Phase 3, with the way that the seeding for the tournament was, this is supposed to be one of the closer matchups. They played just so damn well from top to bottom once again. And again, maybe a couple more clapbacks from the Storm this time around in terms of kill count. But it was always lopsided in favor of the Tanuki. And being able to come back from some really, really interesting positions. I just think that it showcased a lot. And, you know, echoing what the casters were saying, but you'll see, except for moments like this, that might be one of the only times that Nayhoo is in the fight as deep as it could be. A lot of times. Sitting there, fight's going on, everyone's relaxing, nothing crazy's going on. Then just a giant celestial beam shows up in the middle of the fight, kind of like this, and finds a massive amount of damage. Oof! Nowhere near danger, does not have to worry about it, slaughters anybody that's in his vision, plays the Ra to an insane level, plays the Ram to an insane level, and then you get the run back on the Thor, really good front line from the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
I think the Tanuki just stepped up where they needed to, and maybe there were a couple of stumbles, but when I see the 33.5k damage Nayhoo put up, it's like a comfortable blanket over the Tanuki here to put this one to rest.
And 26, nearly 27,000 for Shippigami as well. So the carries of the Yomi Tanuki, the ones with the high execution threshold, are the ones dealing the most damage in this game. So the Yomi Tanuki start off their weekend in a wonderful way. And really, Gore, I think the story now for the last couple of games that we got to see, our third best of 3 of the day, and now our fourth best of 3 of the day, are the 2 players that left for the SPL between Snoopy and Sino.
Yep.
The question was, how would their replacements fare? How would their teams fare losing such immense talents to their squad? Now, long-term success still not confirmed for either of these 2 teams, but upon first look, Shippigami for Snoopy, apparently working out just fine for the Yomi Tanuki. Shlemi as a replacement for Sino Gore, also apparently working out fine.
And I think you're in the good spot because, like you said, like long-term success. When I hear long-term, I'm thinking, can you go like 2 phases or a phase or something, or a year together with success? I think short-term, I think, oh, well, you got like about a month, and that's all you need right now, right? You don't need to come in and have this team comp that's winning Season 10. You need to come in, win this tournament, win group stages, get to Worlds, right? That is your goal right now.
Yep.
And so I think being able to pick up some of these squads, have this level of performance, should be a huge confidence booster for this weekend and their future.
And so, Gore, now in Group B, the Yomi Tanuki give themselves a slight advantage as far as which side of the bracket they are on. Disadvantage only in the sense that they've got to go up against the number 2 seed Athenian Sages. But still a matchup I think the Yomi Tanuki feel okay with because, again, remember in the North American SCC, the Eldritch Hounds were the standout team. They're over in Group A, and we'll look at them in just a moment. Everyone else taking games, taking sets off one another in the NASCC. So the advantage not quite as large as what we saw over in EU, and the Tanuki might feel confident going up against the Sages, who looked great today, against the Blubber Bottoms. And it's the Storm trying to stave off defeat and knockout from this event against the Blubber Bottoms tomorrow. That's one. Again, you favor the Xibalba Storm, but the Blubber Bottoms still a very talented roster over in Group B. And then in Group A, Gore, again, you're all sort of looking at the one team on top of the group. It's the Eldritch Hounds, I believe, that everyone's chasing here.
Yeah, and I think that's the big deal. Actually looking at them, you know, the Sages, the Storm, the Tanuki in Group B specifically, standings-wise, as we've mentioned several times, but right next to each other. Meanwhile, you get over here, you know, the Hounds coming in untouchable, right? Almost, well, no, a perfect year set-wise. Game-wise, maybe drop a few, but, you know, that's most of the time we always said, oh, this will go 3 if the Hounds are messing around, right? That's almost always how it was viewed, because they were just that much stronger. And then you get the opposite from the Weavers, who had, unfortunately, just an abysmal Phase 3, weren't able to, found a lot of
tons of game
3-game sets, but yeah, never able to get that win. The Wardens kind of right there in the middle, 4th seed, kind of surprising everybody. And so this is the one where really the Hounds, if I'm looking at this bracket coming into this event, the Hounds have to get out of here. Honestly, maybe without dropping a game. I think that this is one of those things that if you're talking about them, similar to how we were talking about the Mambo, you've got a 2-0 that first one, 2-0 your next one against the Wardens. Just get to the Elim stage as clean as possible, and then you can start talking about, okay, well now you're in the top 4. We can go a little longer for some of those. And so I think for a lot of those teams, unfortunately in Group A, you're almost already from the bat fighting for that second spot because the Hounds are just so expected to be not perfect, but excellent.
Now, the good news is, Gore, with the way the brackets are broken down, Group A, Group B, 2 teams over the course of the next couple of days will make it out of each of those groups, but then those 4 teams total will whittle themselves down to 2. So right now, you're just focusing on getting out of the group, making your way to the Elim stage. 4 best-of-3s down. A whole lot more to go. Tomorrow, 4 best-of-3s. Yet again, that'll start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time right here on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. My name's Dolson. That's Goremizer on behalf of us, all the other casters, everyone back in production. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you for day number 2 tomorrow.